All right, guys. So today we took one trade and we're up on the account 237. We hit a break-even point on NQ for the Alpha Futures account here, and I'm gonna go over the trade idea here and what happened. The original target for the external objective was hit. The other one was edged, and then this intermediate term one, which I was paying attention to, was also hit. And as you can see, the market is in a very, very choppy condition. This could have been another trade idea right here that also played out and formed nicely. This little inversion off of this internal sweep. Boom. You get the first sweep, and then eventually you get the second sweep right then and there. And that's your little internal sweep with a change in the state right there. Also, you can use the standard deviations. This would have been the original trade idea, though. You know, if you want to enter a little bit early, get in before all the chaos happens. And then as you can see, the all this high resistance or low resistance liquidity was not taken out again. So yeah, and the external objective was never met. So market is just showing an unwillingness to reach the objectives, and it's staying inside of a range, waiting for the news drivers tomorrow. It's building up all the liquidity and just like staying inside of the range. So then eventually it manipulates and then it distributes to where it wants to go after the news, of course. And during the news, you know, it's going to manipulate and fake out a lot of people, and usually it always does that. But let's go over this trade idea. Let's go over the higher time frame, of course. So if we start off on the weekly time frame, always on the weekly time frame here, as you can see, we are still inside of this weekly range right here from this low. Not the trade, this is pretty much the bias. We're still inside of this weekly objective. Again, we're moving up higher, having the market maker buy model here, showing clear intentions. But again, the weekly is just like more of a blueprint of where you want to see the market go for the week. We're just waiting for the power through of this weekly candle, and we're not going to be able to know where the high or low is going to form until tomorrow, you know, until either we sweep the previous week high and then we start moving lower, or we move down and we retrace into this, maybe like the 50% of the range, and then start pushing up higher. On the daily time frame, again, we're reaching for this right here, since we disrespected this breaker market structure, this little order block right here also. And we're just, you know, we're showing clear intentions to move up higher. We don't know after what happens whenever we do move higher. You know, we're going to move lower, we're going to retrace, or we're going to continue to the upside, or we're going to come back into this buy side imbalance, waiting for the news to come out. And then, of course, after the news comes out, there's plenty of things we can do after. And then eventually on the 4-hour time frame, this is kind of where I was a little bit more bullish last night. On the 8-hour, we had an 8-hour bullish order block. We have an 8-hour buy side imbalance, CRT forming, pushing up higher, looking like we want to continue to the upside. And then on the 4-hour, we had a 4-hour external objective, a little range here of external buy side and then sell side. And then we had an internal resistance array, which was the buy side imbalance. But of course, we have another one down here. And then on the 1H, we had our 1 hours marked out. We had a CRT right there. We had an inversion, a bullish inversion, since we made the sell side imbalance in inverse. Lows swept, and then we formed another one, external objective, buy side, sell side, and then we formed CRT, a bullish CRT. We're manipulating, and then eventually, you know, this is where the trade idea was. You know, it was during this candle. I was like, all right, this candle's gonna close. Next one's gonna open 10 a.m. We're gonna open up, move up higher, reach the objective, and eventually we did. You know, we did, and then eventually came back down. But the delivery of that was very sloppy, if I'm being truly honest. If we go to the 15-minute or 30-minute time frame, we had an inversion also right here. Inversion for early got formed, we did retrace, and then we pushed up higher to reach the objective. On the 15-minute time frame, the trade idea was around here. So on the 15-minute time frame, we had a 15-minute bullish order block form right here, and this is kind of where my initial confluence was. Once we had that change in the state of delivery, once we were done chopping around, we had this inversion also formed, and we just formed the change in state of delivery. The market did retrace and eventually pushed up higher. These wicks, I don't like these wicks, bro. I want to speed and delivery, but we didn't get that because, again, tomorrow there's going to be news. And then this was the trade idea here. So let me take this off. All right, so here we had a change in the state of delivery. We had a bullish breaker form, and that's kind of the main confluence, since we low right here, high, lower low, and then we pushed up higher. We formed an inversion, fair value gap right here, and this was my, bias. I was like, all right, we're bullish now. We're bullish. We're sweeping all these lows, having a change in state of delivery, respecting the 1 hour PDA. We're forming a 1 hour CRT. We didn't have any 15-minute CRT though. That's kind of unfortunate. And then eventually we formed a 22 model here. So more of a unicorn model for me, and truly honest, since we had the breaker market structure right here. So we had a breaker market structure. We didn't really sweep much liquidity. It would have been better if we swept the external objective to then eventually move apart, but then we also had CRT. So then I thought about it. I was like, all right, we have CRT. We don't need to come back and sweep the external objective. These internal lows here, perfectly fine. We had a change in the state with the breaker market structure, clearly indicating with the fair value gap also being displaced and created, showing a clear willingness to go up higher. So we had our stop loss right here, and we had our entry right there, and then eventually we were just targeting this high of 1-to-1. And you can see here the trade would have played out if we held it, but we never did. We just didn't see the displacement we wanted. We didn't see everything. The bias here, even on the lower time frame, was correct. We didn't hold the trade simply because of the delivery. We didn't want to see this, and we also had SMT. So we also had SMT here, and this is kind of a big thing on me right now, using SMT, using the correlation here. So right around here, you can see the market was moving lower, and these lows, we had SMT. So I thought to myself, this trade idea would have worked out after I saw this. It was after I saw it. But yeah, I was looking at this, and I was like, damn, the market looks really, like weak for ES. We're going to break below these lows and continue to the downside, reach this sell side objective. What is NQ probably most likely going to do? Continue to the downside. But that was after I saw, these lows getting broken and all that, So then I thought to myself, NQ is lagging right now, but it's going to eventually catch up to move to the downside and eventually, reach for those lows also. And I'll wait for another reentry. But then you can see here the market just continued to move up higher and having those deep retracements. And that was pretty much really it. So closed the trade pretty early, and that was pretty much the trade idea. We bought right there, we sold one for a little bit of profit, and then we got, we exited fully out there. But again, the trade idea, the bias, everything was correct here. I'm gonna mark it out on the trading journal, put it into the playbook, and see what I can learn from this. Honestly, because this is all a learning experience every day. We're learning, building the market experience, building our intuition, our awareness for what we're watching, and like how we're developing as a trader is very, very nice. We're there. I feel like we're there. We just need to be more patient, continue to show up every single day, be consistent, learn from the losses, learn from the wins, continue to backtest, continue to review and analyze more, and I feel like that's the breaking point. Once you start seeing the results, you continue going, you continue to do what you need to do, and it's simple as that. And eventually, the more risk you put on and the more you're patient, the more you follow your rules, the more you build your intuition, all this other stuff, you develop yourself, you're going to start seeing the results you want. And I think that's very, very soon. Of course, August is usually one of the worst months to be trading seasonally. I think Q3, Q4 is honestly the best, and then Q2 by far one of the best too. So Q2, Q4, just only up from here. I think we're trading and we're expecting great results from a month where you shouldn't be, but once the months that do have good price action, which is usually October, November, and December, once those come around, it's wraps. So yeah, we're just simply waiting, building ourselves up for those months to be prepared and to be ready and to, eventually reach the goals that we need to reach and become the person we need to become, simple as that. And we do have our notes right here for when I was live trading. So I'm gonna have to meditate and really think about how I can solve these problems whenever I'm live trading. It's really stemming like from past trades too, what I'm saying. But then again, with the top setup account, it's so bad because like I treat this account like it's an experiment, like I put down right there. I'm experimenting with this account. Like I'm taking trades that I would never take. I'm entering, I'm exiting, I'm doing this and that. What I'm saying, like it's bad. So I entered another trade here. And it just wasn't following my rules, bro. Like it went against my bias and everything, bro. You can see I sold, I bought, and then I sold, bought. It was just bad. I won't lie, it was bad. There was no clear intentions of what I'm doing here and why I'm doing it. The first trade was like following the other one, so that was A+ to me, honestly. But we entered a little earlier here and we could have waited. And then eventually this one we shorted for some reason after we had a change in state of delivery, even though I was clearly bullish. It makes no sense, like I'm just experimenting, seeing what can go right, seeing what can go wrong. And if it wins, there's no clear reason why it won. And if it loses, again, we're just not following the rules. We can say, oh, we fall back upon we're not following the rules and we're not. But then again, I don't want to be doing that no more. Like I want to get rid of that. I want to have only A+ trades, being patient, following my rules, being disciplined, having self-control. That's one thing I need to write down. Having self-control while I'm trading, and while I'm trading certain accounts. No, have self-control trading every single account and outside of trading too. All right, so I wrote it down is having self-control trading and outside of trading, and then building the patience to hold and enter trades. So when I'm holding trades, I'm going to have patience. Like this trade, if we simply held it, and we let it run, we would have pretty much hit our take profit and won. And before we entered the trade here on this one, we could have just simply waited for this right here, this fair value gap, to get tapped up into instead of entering all the way up here. We could have just waited. Boom. Again, this is another thing. I feel like the market was going to leave me. I feel like the market was going to leave me behind. And I wasn't going to get my entry, my perfect entry, And some days, you will miss your entry. Some days it will edge your limit order and you're going to want a market order, And sometimes sometimes the market will leave you behind, and it's perfectly fine as long as your bias and your, intuition was correct. That's all that matters. As long as you're learning and you're building the experience of watching the market and even able to distinguish where it's going and why it's going there, that's all that matters. Even if you miss your trade idea, again, it's all a learning experience. That's all that matters. As long as you're learning and developing, that's all that matters. The trades don't matter. Majority of the time, it's all about following your system, being patient, and sticking to your rules, and that's all that matters. Developing yourself, developing your intuition of what you want from the market and getting it, and understanding why you even got it in the first place, So that's pretty much really it on this account. So yeah, we're down. I think we're cooked on this account. I'm gonna continue to trade. We're down around 1% today for the week too, and then last week we're down around 1% also. And yeah, that's pretty much really it. We're going to just continue to go review, analyze, see what we can do better today. The market is chopping. Tomorrow is going to wait for CPI. And yeah, the trade deal was correct. Just patience, trade management, and the market conditions weren't the best also. So that's basically really it. Peace.